Hi, I'm Rob Tech, and welcome to my studio. Let's break down my song Save Me that I collaborated with FarrahDise. So the first thing I did was, on my MIDI, was I opened up an instrument called Noir. Which is the piano that I ended up using for Save Me. And then when I opened that up, I came over to the keyboard and then I wrote my idea, my initial idea. And then when I wrote that, I also had the idea of writing the main melody. And then when I had the ideas of them laid down in MIDI, I could then orchestrate and find out what kind of a style I was going to go for. So with the idea, I decided to go to 122 BPM and set up my basic melodic elements. So the first things that I did with the MIDI is I rendered everything from MIDI to audio. It's easier to show audio. Was I got the main piano all in place, and then I started off by creating a structure for the whole song. So I've got basic drum elements. I've got my kick. I've got my clap. I've got percussions, hats, my crash, and a hat loop. So I have kind of a housey groove to start off with. And then when I went down to the piano, I have my left hand, which is my bass, and this is the MIDI for it. So the bass is the bottom four notes, which is in the key of A minor for this, so A, F, G, E. And when I started off with my first intro bass, which was a Spire sound. I have it on the one note to start with, and then I have it syncopated. So that forms the groove that I'm after. And then of course I have my Halion, which gives me my sub bass. So if I actually open up Halion, I've got my favorite one is Treework, and there's a really nice sub that I'm always using in all my songs. And again, to start off with, just the same one note. And then that started off the whole structure. Then to keep that part interesting, I've got snare build that comes in, RT is my little one. Then I've got parts where I took the kick drums out and tried to make it more interesting. And then I wanted to create a pluck. So I use Serum, I've got the Serum one. Serum 2, I've got this little basic pluck sound. That then sounds like this. Bit of delay, a bit of verb, not much. Processing on the MIDI. I do a lot of my processing in audio. So I exported all of that. I have audio there for it. So that was sort of one note and of my 8. Bit of automation for the cutoff, and Then I've got my effects, which are just down filters and down sweeps. And that's what started off my song. Then when I go through my first build, because this is the extended mix, so this is for DJ, so this just plays, and then I've got my build that comes up. Then I start to bring in my main core elements. So I start off with my mid bass, which was also a serum. And I've got LFO tool on that, which is giving me the pumping effect. So if I turn it off, I've got my portamento or glissando on my serum sound. To add that, I bring in my ARP, which is also a serum. So my ARP is just the main chord on the right hand that I put on the piano. And with a bit of automation, and then I'm using Station 2 to emphasize it a bit more, give it some saturation. Strings, I also use Helion for, and it's just a string drone. I was like putting in string drones. I also add that extra top element, and then I've got it pumping with the LFO tool. And that just repeats itself as the next 8 bars before I go down into my breakdown. So to start with, I've got my kick verb. So my kick verb is essentially what I've rendered already. And it is the main kick, which then has my reverb on it. So reverb, I've got like 75%. I've got 10-second delay, no pre-delay. It's just a impact sound on the actual kick. So it sounds like this. And then I've layered it with the kick drum. And it gives it a impactful sound. Where I need it to. And in this part, I filter down a lot of my drums percussion with using the automation on the channel strip. So I've got my percussion, but it's got a high cut on it. I keep my string drone going a bit further. I've got my synth comp giving me the rhythmic pulse. So that goes on for 4 bars, and then I've got my piano that comes in. So this is where the radio edit starts. My main piano comes in with the lead. And behind that, I also bring in my Foley. So I've got Rain with sent through some reverb, so it kind of gives it a space. And that's just my bed. Then I keep my synth comp, which is also filtered, and the cutoff is turned down on it a bit. So that would give the rhythmic element to it. And then on top of that, I bring in my vocals. So I start from the vocals. I've got my verse vocals to start with, and I've been searching. To start with that, I recorded it and added my first plugin to get rid of all the room. So this would get rid of all the attenuation of the room and ambience. I've been searching. So it just takes it all out, makes it sound clean. Then I put it through the CL1B, which is like a LA2A with a lot more control over it. I've been searching. Then it goes through my channel strip, which I'm using the channel strip, a bit of compression and a tiny bit of EQ.
For your face dancing.
So about 3 dB on that. Then go through just a de-esser to help attenuate the sibilants. Then getting some extra sound and tone out of the Fairchild, which is quite nice. It's not doing too much in terms of compression. Then I run that through Soothe. And a multiband enhancer, which really makes the vocal shine. That's just my verse, and then my send effects, I've sent it to rooms. So my send effects I use all my pink channels down here. So I've got Pro R and Cooper Time Cube and a Capital Chambers verb for that. So I've got all my send effects down there. And that's pretty much it. Then I start to build the song up with the vocals and the ARP that comes in.
You're the only one who can save me right now. Save me right now.
And I keep some of my groove on with the percussion loop.
The only one who can save me right now. Save me right now. Yes, you're the
So in this part, of course, for the pre-chorus and the chorus, similar sort of thing with my inserts. Send effects, I've got all my rooms and delays and plate verbs, and then I've got multiple takes and harmonies, and they're all doubled up to really make the vocals shine. On the groups, because my groups are under each, which are the dark blue ones under the folders. So I've got the chorus folder and then chorus group, and then I've got automation under that for what I needed to. And for the chorus vocals, I've got a Studio A800, which is tape, give me some extra saturation on that. I've got my exciter again, multiband enhancer, which just excites the vocals. I also like to use sound toys, so the tremolator gives it, it gives it this stutter effect, which is really cool at the end, just before the drop comes. And then I've sent that to a parallel vocal palette compressor at the bottom. Now in this part, as we build up, I also build up the pluck melody. So pluck melody is the main melody that I wrote. So this is Spire. And I've got my automation going up on the MIDI for that. On the pluck, I've got a bit of saturation using the SSL saturator, which is really, really nice. I love doing that. I love that plugin. Then, of course, I'll bring up my arpeggio, and I've got my cutoff that opens up on it. Then I do have the vocals. My piano, of course, I start playing the melody on the piano. So the piano itself is also progressed from the original chords and a little motif. And then it's morphed into the whole main melody being played on the piano. So they complement each other. I do keep my original beat groove going with the synth comp, which gives you a bit of a nice rhythmic element. Then I bring in my little snare build that comes in. With my snare hit, which is also backed by my kick and my kick verb to really give it the low end punch before the drop. And FarrahDise herself climaxed on her voice so that it kind of built up. So I had her a lot more intimate at the beginning. So she's much closer to the mic. And then step away and project a lot more. And that's the sound toys giving me the tremolated effect, which is really cool before the drop. Lead melody. Yeah, lead melody comes in. On the lead melody, I've got my LFO tool, of course, giving me that pumping vibe. So lead melody is a sound I use quite a bit, actually. I've got it in my serum editors. I've got it on this serum channel. So it's pretty much just a basic sawtooth. And I can play around with the cutoff. And I think I've got my effects on the LFO tool being triggered, which is kind of cool. It gives it more like a pumping vibe before I pump everything with an LFO tool. So that becomes the base of the melody. And then I add in my next bass, which is my mid bass. So mid bass I played, and it's another spire sound, and then I've got it. So I rhythmically bring up the octave on certain notes in the MIDI to make it groove, kind of very trancey, to make it groove like an uplifting trance bass would for this song, which is pretty cool. Then I've got that pump. I've got it pumping. Go with the drums, and it's. So I've got a really fat groove happening there, which is really nice. Yeah, effects, I bring them up, cut, and then bring them back down on the drop. I like having little cuts sometimes. Sometimes I keep them flowing, like if I play over here, they go up and they release. When the other ones I like to keep it hanging for an extra beat and then let it release. Just adds that tension, like subtle tension to the song, to really make the drop a big release. Yeah, so what else do we have? We've got the next verse, similar sort of thing that happens.
Almost found you, now I got caught in the aching of wanting you more.
Now this is cool. So we start off with the fact that I've automated down the high cut on the drum bus. So it's all filtered. While it's filtered, I have the percussion lip playing. So it gives it a bit of groove and movement to the song. It's just a lot more dull. And that works really well with the pre-chorus where I bring in my kick. Now my kick is going through that group, so it becomes more of a sub-kick. And that sub-kick then goes through my bass, which is automated. I've got on the MIDI, I've got it automated so that on the cutoff, so that it's also a lot lower. Which is kind of cool. And then while I do that, I also bring in my plucks. Now this is cool. So my pluck lead is also, it's a spire. I'll show you the MIDI in a second. So this just sits behind the vocals, but the pluck itself notes, I keep on building it to make this climax next level. And to make it separate from the beginning, and it's not just copy paste. So for that, I wrote Inspire and I've got my MIDI. So I start off with my first chord at, look at it, it's like C3 sort of octave. And then I start to bring up and augment the actual chord progression so that I'm always adding on top. So the bottom part gets moved up and they all keep on shifting. So that tonally they are on a rise, and it really helps keep that the build going really well. So that's behind the vocal. I do keep my rain effects in to give it ambience, give it atmosphere. Melody comes back, and I'm still got that pluck build rising and rising. But it's actual, like this pluck build. It's just a subtle element that will keep on pushing the tune and rising the tune up to a bigger climax than the first build. Because you've heard the first build, you've heard the first drop, then we go into the second chorus, or second verse and the second breakdown, and then what can I do to make this second build and second drop bigger than the first one? And so adding in those extra automation, a little bit extra elements like my little build that is syncopated and goes up with everything. And at the same time as my build goes up, because I started with the kick and everything being filtered down on the drum bus, I now start to pretty much filter everything out and open up again. So it sounds like. I add in elements, like I add in my hats here as well as I start to open it up, add in my snare build, and then open it all up. Into the next drop. And from the beginning and throughout the song, I also have my synth comp playing. So just before the drop on the second one, I wanted to add in just that and make it really punchy. So that just comes through at the very end. And a melody plays, and then my arpeggio comes in. Now I get my next piano, and I got my piano which is on the physical SV1 on a piano sound with compression. That's playing the melody in 2 octaves, so I'm pretty much just playing the right hand at 2 octaves apart, and that just sits on top of my main melody when my up comes in. So I have a really bigger melodic drop on this one. Now I've got my lead melody being sidechained very heavily, and my outro piano doesn't have any sidechain on it, and it's quite attack and quite sharp on the attack, so it kind of gives in the attack that the lead melody doesn't because it's sidechained so much. So they work really well together on that. Now, what can I do to make, instead of just repeating that same melody again and again and again, what can I do in the drop to make it a little bit more interesting? Write another melody. So I ended up writing, let's find the right melody. Yeah, this was fun. So I ended up writing my main melody and then doing an inverted version of it. So it plays off the original idea that I have with the main melody, but then it just makes it a bit different, which can really help with adding some extra more interest to the song. So I've got it so that my melody jumps up and then goes down, which is actually kind of cool. I'll find it here. And that will play out to the next part. The next part's pretty cool. What I did under that was decided to layer it again with a vocal sample. So that vocal sample, especially when you hear it afterwards, that's FarrahDise. And I got her to sing like an R, and then going through my sample edit, I able to tell it to start on A because I got her to sing an R on A, and then I could play around with the MIDI on it and create a melody out of it. So I was just playing around like that until I created something that sounded pretty cool with her vocal. Which is really, really cool. So yeah, I end it with everything fading out and I bring in my synth comp back again, which I took out during the drop. Which gives me that really cool rhythmic element to it. And then I've got the vocals chop playing at the end, which I've got going through, I've got a Saturn, which gives me the extra saturation that I wanted on it. I've got my Transit 2, which is giving me the effect that I'm after with the stuttering. LFO tool, which gives me the real pumping sound that I've got. I've got delays on it, so I've got a ping pong delay. I got a bit of verb and I'm sending it to a plate verb and my delay verb. So yeah, took it out and then took out the kick drum, bring the kick drum back in, and then I bring back my string drum and my main piano when I take out the vocal effect, the vocal chop effect. And I bring in my rain again, because it gives it this real ambient at the very, very end. And then I automated my hats so that the high cut can take them out. And then I end with my build, and it goes into the kick, verb and the kick, and my little outro sweep, or just a down filter, really, just like a crash. Once I take everything out, and that's pretty much all there is to the song. Go into 111 tracks. Yeah, I've got Icarus, gives me my hats. I think I'm using my hat loop. Yeah, I'm using my hat loop on Icarus. Close that down. And then I've got serums, spires. I never use a silent, but I have silent. And then I use my Halionic complete control for the rest of that. And yeah, that's how Save Me is broken down. Thanks for joining me in the studio today. I hope you enjoyed the breakdown of my song Save Me. You can watch the music video on YouTube, or you can stream the song on any stream platform.